and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to you if you're new. I do what I call in my videos make what you see in the shops, and it means that we recreate garments you see in the shops, and I'll show you from the beginning to the end result how you can recreate that. So we make the pattern, I'll show you how to sew it, and we do that step by step, so you don't have to have any experience in pattern making or drawing or sewing even. You only have to know how your sewing machine works, because I cannot help you with that. But I'll take you from the beginning to the end, step by step, how you can recreate it. And we can recreate things really like the way we want, and I show you how you can do it, so that in the future you can also just make your own patterns for anything that you like, because sometimes you see something in the shop that you don't really like. You like it, but you don't like the sleeves, or you don't like the skirt, or whatever, and I show you how you can change that. So if you like that, please consider subscribing if you've seen this video, and please hit the notification bell, because I have severe health issues, so I cannot upload very regularly. Well, regularly, but not every week or every same day. So I'm not sure when I will upload. So when you put your notifications on, you'll get notified when I have a new video. That can be every week, sometimes only once a month, so I'm not really sure. But I hope you like this video. Last year I made a MuuMuu style dress. That is a Hawaiian dress, and I really like them. I bought I think 3 fabrics out of a real Hawaiian fabric store. I can buy them online, but they have also just normal shops in Honolulu and in some other places. And so they are really nice Hawaiian fabrics, because I like to use really the fabric that is suitable for that. I wasn't sure if a MuuMuu should have a certain fit, or not a fit, but a certain style. So I apologized in that video if I was wrong, because I had researched a lot, but I couldn't really find out what is really specific for a really MuuMuu dress. But luckily a native Hawaiian woman commented on my video and said that I did good, and that there were so different styles you can make a MuuMuu in, and that I did a good job. So I was very happy with that, because I didn't want to offend anyone that is native Hawaiian. Because I do it out of a fashion thing, and I really couldn't find the really native things from that dress. So now this time, you saw in the title, I called it the MuuMuu style dress, so that I don't make any mistakes when it's not really the good one, because you find really a lot of different styles for that. But for me, a MuuMuu dress is a dress in a nice floral fabric, water loose, water wide, ruffle on the bottom, wider sleeves, and just a very nice and comfortable dress to have and to wear. And I have now this fabric that I will use for it. It's a pinky orangey color with, of course, flowers and leaves, and a really nice Hawaiian print. It is a cotton blend, so it's a polyester cotton, so not 100% cotton like I made the former dress from. But it feels very nice. It's a little bit more thin than the other one, a little bit more flowy, and I think it will be a very nice one. So I'll show you how we're gonna make it, and I hope you like this video too. And if you have any suggestions for me, if you are a native Hawaiian, please let me know. I would love to hear from you to educate me. So I'll show you what we're gonna make. So this is the style that I choose for this one. I make a round neckline. I make it wide, like in my opinion a MuuMuu should be, but with some kind of shape. So I make princess seams in the front, and maybe I use the darts in the back. I hopefully won't have to make a zipper. I don't mind zippers, but I think a MuuMuu should not be with a zipper, although many of them have that. But I just try to make it wide enough that I can just put it on, and if it is too tight, then I will put a zipper in. I just bought an invisible zipper foot that I have never had in all the 40 plus years that I'm sewing, so I'm very curious how that will be, but I think a MuuMuu is more nicely without a zipper. Then this dress has puff sleeves with gathers on the shoulder and gathers or elastic on the arm. You might know that I'm not really a fan of it, because on my body type it doesn't suit me very well. So I'm not gonna make them. I'll make them different, but I'll show you how you can make these sleeves if you like these sleeves. I make mine double layered with gatherings on the bottom, and it's not with elastic. I'll show you. I cannot really explain how it is, but it has flat pleats on the shoulder, so not that puff that a gathering like this one has. And then going down, it has gatherings onto the lining that is more straight, so the lining is more fitted than the outer fabric. And I cannot really tell you how it is, but I'll show you later, and I can also show you in the drawing that I'll make maybe. Then it has a high-low hemline. You see on the sides it goes up a bit. I very much like that, so I'm gonna make that. It also the ruffle, of course, on the bottom, it has an overlap on that same side where the hemline is higher. You can also see that it has some kind of bias tape on the hem of the sleeves and on the hem of the ruffle. I'm not really a fan of that. You can do that, but I will just normally hem my hemlines like it is. So that is what the dress will be that we are going to make. So we make the dress with princess seams in the front, possibly the darts in the back. I'll just see how my dress fits on me, but when you like, you can of course make the darts that are in the basic pattern. Then we make a ruffle here on the bottom with a high-low hemline, so it is attached higher on the side seam than on the other side seam, so it goes a bit up with the overlap here on the side, or more the attachment on the side. We make a rounded neckline. Then I make these sleeves, but you can make the sleeves that the inspiration picture has, so with the gatherings here on the top, elastic here around the bottom, that you have a little bit of a ruffle here. I don't like that on my body type, so I make a different sleeve. I make this one, and that means it is a double sleeve. The outer fabric is wider than the inner fabric, so it is sort of lined, but you attach your outer fabric onto your inner fabric. And then I don't make ruffles, or I don't make gatherings here on the top, on the shoulder, but I make flat pleats, so it's more put it down so that it's not that fluffy that I don't really like. And then the bottom of the sleeve will be gathered attached to the inner fabric, and it means that you don't get a ruffle like this, but you get gatherings that are not really visible. Well, they are visible. I don't know really how to explain, but they are attached. The gatherings are attached to the straight fabric from the inner sleeve, and it gives a very nice effect, but not that puffy as this one that I don't really like. But the pattern is exactly the same for this sleeve and this sleeve, so that will be no difference. But I'll show you how to make this one if you like that, and I will make this one to my dress. Then for the back, nothing different. I'll make it a little rather wide, because I hope that I don't have to put a zipper in as I did for the other MuuMuu, because I like that more for MuuMuu. That's more the vibe for me for a MuuMuu dress. But if it happens to be too tight to put it over your head, then we can make a zipper here in the mid back, so that you can just put it on normally. And that is the whole pattern. So for your pattern, you will need your basic pattern for a top or dress, and I will link it up here and down in the description box where you can make that. I have a video how you can make that pattern, and you can just draw along. And we changed that in the video how we make a little black dress. We make the darts into princess seams, and I'm going to use this pattern. So if you don't have that pattern, you can watch that video how to make it of the little black dress. I will link that also up here and down in the description box, how you make these princess seams. It's very easy when you already have your basic pattern, so make sure you start with your basic pattern and then change that into this. So we're going to use this part, and that's the nice thing when you have basic patterns, you can reuse them over and over again. You don't have to draw that much, you don't just do the adjustments to your basic patterns, and then it's very easy, because you know it will always fit, and you just change them into the dress or top that you want to have then. So this is these are the princess seams that we're going to use for the front. You can measure on your own body how low you want your rounded neckline to be. You can make it high, you can make it lower. This is where I usually make the lowest point, so I will be just around here. And you can make a new basic pattern out of that, but I usually don't do that because I like to save some paper. So I just mark here with a pin on my fabric what height I want it to be, and then I just round it off on my fabric. And you don't have to make a new basic pattern. What I did for my MuuMuu dress, the former MuuMuu dress, I made it a little bit wider on the side seam. Because we don't use the normal side seam that you can see here with that blue line. But I'm gonna make my dress a little bit wider because I want it wide and loose. So instead of following that curve, I'll make it go from the underarm going out a bit. You can see with my ruler, but you can also see it maybe here on the paper that is underneath. It's going a bit out. And you can make it as wide as you like. If you want a really wide dress, you can also let it go more out, or just do it a bit like this, because this is already a lot of more fabric. Because you see here at the waist, this has already added around 5 centimeters, so that is 4 times 5 centimeters, already 20 centimeters at the waistline. So when you go out a little bit, it is already water wide, at least in my case, because my waist is a lot smaller than my hip. But you can make it as wide as you like, and that will be just the whole pattern for it. So nothing very difficult to draw. And what you also can do is just paste your little black dress pattern with the princess seams onto your fabric, and just with your ruler mark the side seam, and then mark that with pens or chalk, and then cut that out. And you don't have to make a whole new pattern when you already have this one from the little black dress. And for the back, it will be just the same basic pattern without the princess seam, so your normal basic pattern, but then with your new side seam. And you can also do that by just putting the cutted front piece onto your fabric. Then you have the right side seam for your back pattern. And for the sleeve, you will need your basic pattern for a sleeve, and I also mark up here and down in the description box where you can find a video how to make your basic pattern for the sleeve. And you trace that 2 times on a piece of another paper. And what you do is you measure how long you want your sleeve to be, because this is for a long sleeve, and you measure for a short sleeve how much from the top of your shoulder you want that sleeve to be. I made 2 times because I want to make that double sleeve. So I made the pattern for my lining sleeve. That is exactly the same shape as my basic pattern. The only thing that I do is I make my side seams 2 centimeters smaller on the bottom. So I cut these pieces off. That the bottom of my sleeve is a little bit tighter than my basic pattern, because this is where my sleeve will end. And I want the bottom of my sleeve being rather fitted to my arm, but of course not too tight, because it won't stretch, it won't have elastic. So this is the pattern for my lining. And then the same pattern I traced for my basic pattern for the outer fabric. The only thing is my basic my lining ends here, and I make my outer fabric 2 centimeters longer, because this will be gathered and then it will fold under, because the attachment line will be here. So the gatherings will be underneath the outer fabric. I marked where the middle is, and I then made 2 lines on either side, 2 centimeters from the middle, and then 3 centimeters from the middle. And we're gonna cut the pattern here into pieces. So we're gonna cut these lines open. And same if you want to make the sleeves from the inspiration picture. You make only this pattern, you don't need the lining part, you only make this pattern, and you also cut these stripes open. Maybe you want the sleeve a little bit longer because you make that ruffle. You can do it like this, then your ruffle is only 2 centimeters, but you can make it also a little bit longer if you like that more. I cut the lines of that sleeve, and now I'm going to place them onto a new piece of paper, and I put each piece 2 centimeters from the other piece. So this is the side one, this is the first one, this is the second, this is the third, this is the fourth, and here in between I place them, I'm going to show it like this, 2 centimeters from the other one, so that the sleeve will be wider now, will be widened out. And I'll make the 2 centimeters on the top and also on the bottom, so we're not feathering it out, it's just straight out, and you just place them like this onto your fabric, onto your paper. So then you have something like this. I hope you can see that you see the pieces and then with some space in between. Then you adjust here the top line that it's a nice ongoing line. So just connect the pieces. And then you cut this out. That, and then you have your new outer sleeve for the double sleeve. You'll see this is the lining part. And you see that is smaller. So it will be gathered here, the outer fabric will be gathered here so that it matches up with this top part, and the bottom here of your outer sleeve will be gathered so that it matches up with the bottom of your lining sleeve. And if you're just doing the ruffle sleeve or the gathered sleeve, this will be gathered, and I wouldn't gather all the way down, just go from where the curve will go down, a bit like this, and gather it here. That is more nicely. And of course here the bottom you can gather all the way onto your elastic. So that will be the sleeves. So I cut all my pieces, the front part with the princess seam, of course on the fold, and I also cut the facing for my neck hole. And you do that by just tracing here the neck hole, and then make it at least I made it 5 centimeters wide. You can make it whatever size you like, and then trace that down and cut it out, of course also on the fold. And then you have nice facing exactly matching the neck hole of your dress. I cut off the left part of my hemline for that high-low line. What I did is at first I cut it just straight on to be sure that I was cutting off the right side, because the front and the back is of course different. So you can do that to make sure that you're not cutting the wrong angle. Then we have our back pattern on the front, of course, also. And also here I made a facing for the neck hole exactly the same as for the front, 5 centimeters wide. And here I cut off, here you see the other side, because the back part has to cut off the different angle. And then I have 2 times the outer sleeve and 2 times the inner sleeve, and I made the inner sleeve of just a very thin cotton, so that it will stay nice and flowy. And you see the size is really way smaller than the outer fabric, because we're gonna gather this one on top of our lining fabric. And then I also cut the ruffle, and same for that I did with the other MuuMuu. I cut off 4 pieces of the width of the fabric, that is 125 centimeters, and I got 4 of them 20 centimeters high with a seam allowance. So then you have a lot of ruffle to work with and to gather on the bottom of your dress. Then we're going to start assembling, and we will start with sewing down the princess seams, and make sure you have marked where the connecting points are. I made a snip where they should be, where they should match. You can also put a pin in, and then you just place the seams right sides together, match up those points, and make sure that the points are really connecting each other, because otherwise you get a strange curve into your princess seam. So match up your snips here and pin that down, and make sure that you don't stretch out your fabric when you have to make a curve. I also use a lot of pins when I pin that down, so that you can just attach your wider angle easily to your smaller angle, because if you don't do that, you will often start stretching out the fabric to get it matched to the longer side, and that is not nice. So make sure you use a lot of pins to connect both sides. And as an example, this is the amount of pins that I use for just such a small curve, to make sure that it is also very nice and flat here on the bottom. And it also helps when you pin and you put the smaller part on the bottom and the outer part on the outside, and then put your pin. So you make some kind of a curve over your fingers, then it is easier to adjust the wider part of the fabric to the smaller part of the fabric. So just make it curve it over your fingers when you pin it down. And then when you stitch it, you don't get any bumps on the bottom part or stretching out on the top part. So now you place your back pattern on top of your front, you match up your shoulder seams and you pin them down, match up your side seams and you sew the side seams and you sew the shoulder seams together. Now you do the same for the facings. Place the back facing on top of the front facing, match up here the shoulder seams, and then you pin them down and sew them together so that you get a circle, some kind of circle. So now we're going to pin our facing onto the dress. So you place your dress right side out and you place your facing on top of that. Make sure you have ironed open all your seams very nicely. And then you match up your shoulder seams. And then you just pin the whole neckline all around. Like that, and then you stitch all around, and then you can also already finish the outline of your facing with a zigzag or a serger stitch. Now you iron the seam allowance to the facing side, and then you stitch the facing to that seam allowance, and that means when you flip it over after that, your facing will stay nicely put inside and not flipping over like this. So understitch this whole part and then iron the facing down to the inside. If you want, you can also top stitch it if you like that more, or even top stitch it here at the end of your facing, whatever you prefer. But I would always understitch it just to keep the facing and the seam allowance nicely put inside. We're going to continue with our sleeves, and if you want to make the sleeves of the inspiration picture, you will do this. You will first hem the bottom of your sleeve just by giving it a very small hem, and then you will gather the top of the sleeve with two gatherings. So 1.5 centimeters apart, two gatherings here on the top of the sleeve. You can do the whole sleeve, but I always like to prefer just do the head, because you don't want any gatherings here underneath your arms. That is not very comfortable. You do that. Then you can already put after that your elastic here for just above where you want to ruffle to be. You put elastic here onto your fabric, and you do that by measuring first how much elastic you want around your arm, your upper arm where your sleeve will sit. Measure that elastic out, cut that off, and then pin it on the beginning of your sleeve and on the end, and of course stretching it out because the elastic is smaller than your sleeve. And then with a zigzag stitch, sew that elastic onto your sleeve at a right length, so just above where your ruffle ends. I always like to do that first and then close up the sleeve with the sleeve seam. You can also do the elastic afterwards, so first closing up the sleeve and putting the sleeve in and then do the elastic, but I prefer always to do the elastic first. Then you just close up your sleeve, so by sewing your sleeve seam, and then you take in the gathering so that your sleeve will fit into your armhole, and then you sew your sleeve like you normally would do. That is when you want to make the sleeve of the inspiration picture. What I will do is I will attach my outer fabric onto my lining fabric. So that means that I will gather the bottom of my sleeve to the width that it is matching up my lining sleeve. So I also make 2 lines of gatherings, or I can also just do 1 now because it's not that important to have 2. And then I gather it in so that it matches this part of my sleeve. And I also will make the gatherings here on top of, no, I won't make gatherings, I'll make pleats here on top of my sleeve so that this outer part will match up with this inner part. And it means that my outer fabric will give a little bit of a bulk over the top of my inner sleeve, because you see this is way much higher than this. So I will do this and I'll show you when I'm doing how to do that. You see, I placed my fabric right sides together. So I place my outer fabric onto my lining fabric. I made gatherings here on the bottom. I try to make them a little bit even. And then I will pin my outer fabric onto my lining. And then I will sew them together here on the bottom of the sleeve. something like this. Then you flip your fabric together, so you match up the sleeves one sides together. And then I'm gonna make pleats into my outer fabric, so that the side of the sleeve on the top, so this part, matches up with the top part of my lining fabric. And then I will pin them together and treat them as one. You can also do a basting stitch here, so that you have the fabrics together when you sew them into your sleeve or into your dress. But you can also just pin it, just whatever you prefer to do. And of course then also close up your sleeve seam. And now, while making the other sleeve, I sew them together with the gatherings. I decided to first sew here the sleeve seam down. I don't know if it looks more nice on me, because it means that the sleeve gets a more nicely rounded poof. Maybe it's too much on my body type, but I'm just gonna try it, because I think the finishing is more nice when you do it like this than when you have to close up the sleeve like this. It will be more flat here on the bottom than underneath the arm. And so for the finish, I think this is more nicely. Maybe this looks better on me, but I'm just gonna do it like this, because I like a nice finish. So put the two pieces together here on the bottom of the sleeve, then close up your sleeve seam, and then do the pleats on the top, or on the head of the sleeve. So you just place them, then again your lining to your outer fabric, and make the pleats here, and then your whole sleeve is already all together now. So now we're going to work on our sleeves, but before that I'm first gonna attach my facing to the shoulder seams by doing a stitch in the ditch here to connect them. I will also put my name tag here on the back, so then the back facing is also attached, and maybe I will do some hand stitching just here on the front to keep that nice and flat, but maybe that's not even necessary when you attach it here and here. So that's what we're going to do first. And if you don't know how to do a stitch in the ditch, I will link up here and down in the description box my video where I show you how you can do that. It's very easy, but it's a very nice trick to secure things invisible. So now we're going to put our sleeves in. If you're making the sleeve of the inspiration picture, make sure you gather the top of your sleeve and mark where the shoulder seam is. For the other sleeve, I basted the lining and the outer fabric together so that it's more easy to put your sleeve in. Then match up the shoulder of your sleeve to the shoulder of your dress and pin them together. And then do the same for the sleeve seam and the side seam of the dress. Match them up and pin them together. And for my double sleeve, of course, I pin the fabric together onto the dress. and make sure I put my dress wrong side out, you see. So make sure that you match up right sides together. You pin those two seams and then just distribute the rest of your fabric into your armhole. And when you have my sleeve, make sure you don't make any extra pleats or something while you put it into your armhole. When you have the inspiration picture sleeve, make sure you put your gatherings nicely distributed over the part of your armhole where you want them to sit, that you don't have more on one place than on the other, because that doesn't really look nice. For the ruffle we have 4 parts. We're gonna connect them, but we're not gonna make a circle. So you connect them on the short sides, like that, all 4, and then you have one long strip. And all my pieces together. I also finished the top line of my ruffle, and now what I did is I placed them on top of here that curved hemline of the dress. I matched this side almost exactly to that curve, so like that. And then what I did is I curved out my ruffle so that it matches up the side seam of my dress. So I'm going straight down from here and the same line, and then curve it back to the bottom of my ruffle. And then when you attach them later on, you have a nice overlap from the dress to your ruffle. What I'm going to do now is going to hem my ruffle. I have ironed it down quite a bit because that makes it easier to sew. And then I'm also going to gather the top of my ruffle to attach it to the dress. And you can do that afterwards, but I do that before I attach the ruffle. I also going to finish here the hem of, or the side of my dress, so that I don't have to finish it later on when the ruffle is attached. So I had my basting stitch, and then I divided my dress into 4 parts, because I have my ruffle into 4 parts. Then I can nicely divide them onto each other. And of course for the dress it's the 2 side seams and the mid front and the mid back. Then I gather my ruffle also in quarters, because that is most easy, and you don't have the risk that you break your thread. And you can do that just by picking up here at the seam where your ruffles are attached, picking up your basting thread and then cutting it through, and then you can use that part of your thread just for that quarter. So when it breaks, you only have to do that quarter again with a new basting stitch. And then I'm sure you know, but you take the bottom or the top thread of your basting stitch, it doesn't matter which one, and then you can just pull on it and gather your fabric together. Here at the side I placed the 2 ends over each other. The front part on top of the back part, and then right at where your side seam is, I want that seam of the ruffle. And then you can just place them on top of each other and put them in some kind of a curve. You can sew into a curve too, and you just put the ruffles to the end and pin that down all the way around. I only have to do this part, this quarter, and then I can sew my ruffle on just below where your basting stitch is, so that you don't see it. And you see, I had finished the bottom of my dress and the top of my ruffle, so that I don't have to finish it again. You can also do it afterwards when you have attached it, sew them together, but it's a lot of fabric and my surgeon doesn't really like that, so I just did it separately. So I'm gonna gather this also to the end of this part, and then I'm gonna sew them together. The next MuuMuu, looking very nice. You see that after I finished everything, I still put some darts in the back because it was really bulking up a bit here on the top. It was really going out, and like this it's a little bit more nicely straight down, and I think that looks better on me. So you can just take your basic pattern and mark again the darts on your back pattern and then sew them on. So it's not a problem to do that afterwards. But I think again it looks really great. These dresses are so nice and comfortable to wear. I think they look really cute, although I live in a very cold climate. But still, I like these dresses when it is summer in my country, and then I even have to put something over it. But they are so nice and comfortable and floral and summery, and they're really, really nice and comfortable. I like them loose. Of course, you can put a belt on if you like to, but I think a MuuMuu should just be loose and nice and comfortable. And although this is not 100% cotton, it's still very nice and fresh, and you don't get warm in these dresses. And you see with the sleeves, like I made them, I have the flat pleats here on the top, and when I fold it over, you see the lining there, and it folds nicely over your arm. It's not constricting in any way because I made my lining fabric water loose. Of course you can make it also tighter onto your arm, but I like the loose fit of this dress, so also I like my sleeves to be loose, but still they have that poofy look like the sleeves of the inspiration picture, but it doesn't feel like it is in any way restricting you in your movement or in your ventilation. And I think it looks really nice and cute. Nice low front neckline, and well, I think the ruffle speaks for itself. It should be on a MuuMuu, and I think this was really a success again, and I'm sure I will wear this dress a lot because they are really good and nice to wear and to have. So I hope you like this video too. I call this one the MuuMuu style dress because of course it is not a real MuuMuu, it's just what I recreate. But I think when you make it, try to make it really out of the Hawaiian fabric that you can buy in Hawaii or from Hawaii. Then you have a more genuine dress, I think, than when you just buy a European fabric or in whatever country you live in. It has just a little bit more than just a normal floral dress. So I hope you like it. If you have any comments or suggestions or questions for me, please leave them down below in the comment section and I'll get back to you. If you have any request what you would like me to make or to recreate, just send me a picture in a DM on Instagram. I think that is the most easy, then I can see what you like and what you want me to make. I hope you like this one, and I'll see you again next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.